Alright guys, for this demonstration I would like to have a look at chapter 7, in particular chapter 8 and then some additional, okay. Chapter 7 deals with adding your own methods, okay. So if you have a look at the text, okay, it actually goes through the methods, but with this demonstration I will explain these things, okay, how to add your own methods. Things that you've already done. Remember in the first lab, the lab tutorial that I've given you, that is where I've actually put in methods, okay, and you actually had to code the methods. In other words, you had to write the code inside the methods, okay. So a method basically constitutes of two things. The one is defining the method, and the other one is to actually call the method, okay. So let's look at the demonstration. Let's call a. I'm going to create it there. Okay, what are we going to call this? Okay, I'm just going to call it collect objects. Okay, so the idea here is that you collect objects, but these objects. Yeah, let's call it. Okay, so in our world, just set the background image for the world. Let's make it some. Okay. I'm going to add again 3 objects. Okay. The one being the main object. Okay. Let's make that a person. Let's use that man on the moon. We call him Moonwalker. Okay. Right. So that will be. It's about okay. Background and the image doesn't necessarily correspond. Okay. And let's call it, let's add another actor there, or another object or actors. We call that, let's select an object there. And let's say he's collecting all these golden balls there, okay. Space object. And then lastly we can add, what are we going to call this? Let's put that rocket there, call that rocket. Right, so let's say the spaceman or the moonwalker must collect these balls. It's big balls, okay. Make it a bit smaller, no? Objects, steel balls. If they're a bit small, same size. Let's make that the red ones. Okay, those are a bit smaller, okay? Right, so we've got a moonwalker there. We've got all these little balls that needs to be collected. And we've got a spaceship, okay? Alright, so this guy must collect all of these without being knocked by the spaceship. Okay? Right? Makes sense. Okay. All right. So the idea here really is that we want this to be collected. So we're going to do a couple of things to the firstly to the moonwalker. Okay. So this moonwalker must be able to move and also collect the objects. Okay. So there are 2 methods that we're talking about here. The one is move. Or let's call that mover. Okay. So that is, so when you define a new method, you start with public, the type, which in this case is void. Let me just make this a bit bigger. Options, preference, font size. Let's make that font size a bit 20. Okay. All right. Is that big enough? Let's just make that. Right. So the mover, which is basically, keyboard control. Okay. So you've got your method there. We call it mover, and then you call that method called mover. Okay. So when you define new methods, there are two things that you need to do. Okay. The first thing is to define your method. Okay. And the definition of the method consists of the header, okay, the signature of the method, as well as the open curly bracket. So in here, you'll then put in your statements, okay? Right, so those are the statements that will actually do whatever you want the method to be done. And this over here is the call to the method, okay? Call to the piece of code that will actually do that instruction. So the instruction here is mover, okay? So whatever you do, that is what you will do there, okay? You can, let's say, collect objects. So here's another method, okay? Call the method. Okay, now what you see there, that the collect object is highlighted in yellow and red, which means that this method has not been defined yet, okay? So the rule here is that you can't call a method which you haven't defined, okay? It must be defined. The order in which you do it, whether you define it first and then call it, or whether you call it first because you know that you're going to have that method there. So you need to work around that. But the idea is that it must be defined in order to be called, okay? So collect object or objects. Alright, so that is your method over there. The method definition and the call to the method. So regardless of where you put this, okay, so we have the act method here. If you put that method, collect method, up here above the act method, it will still work, okay? So regardless of where you define it in the scope of this class, but as long as it's inside this class, okay, it can't be outside there, okay? You can't define it outside, otherwise it's not going to be part of it. You might be able to do that, but it raise some errors there, void, okay? It needs an interface, okay? So you can't do it there, right? Okay, but the best thing is, obviously, if we want to be consistent, we want to define all other methods after the act method, okay? So that if you have a glance of this code, you first see what the code actually does before you look at all the other methods, okay? What the other methods do. So at least in here you can see there's a call to this method. Okay, so what does this method do? Then you go to the method, okay? Alright, so for our mover, we want to do a couple of things, okay? We want to make this thing move. So the basic thing to do is to write a move statement, okay? So that will cause your object to move, okay? Alright, first of all, let's just save this world. I haven't saved it. Put in the objects and a right click and save. So let's get saved. So if we run this, the moonwalker just moves, okay? So it moves forward, okay? So what you want to do, you want to maybe make it move, but you also want to control it, okay? So if Greenfoot dot is key down. So greenfoot.ease key down. So ease key down is the method that allows you to press keys, okay, to check what key is pressed down. But the ease key down is a method of the Greenfoot class, so that's why we call it as Greenfoot dot. Okay. So let's say we want to turn it left. So left turn would be to say if it's left, if the left key is pressed, then we turn it to the left. The left means anti-clockwise. Okay. So anti-clockwise means -5. Okay, or whatever the degrees. Same with the other one, you can turn it to be right. And by the way, whatever you write in brackets there is not case sensitive. So whether you put the uppercase or lowercase r, it's not case sensitive in this sense. And then we make it to move, turn it to the right. Okay. So if we test this, run this, okay. So alright, so that doesn't look too nice, okay, for the turn, okay, because it actually turns like that. You don't want, okay. Alright, so let's go back then. So what we want to do instead is we want to rather use the left hand to move it. Okay, also. Say again? Yeah. Yes. You have to put negative because negative means anti-clockwise, positive means clockwise. Okay? Right, so what we want to do instead, if we turn it left and right, okay, so you've got your left and right, you've got your up and down, okay? So let's say, let's take this out, or comment that out to set, okay, no. Take that out, add, if it's left, then we're going to make it move to the left, and if it's right, we'll make it to move to the right. Okay. Okay, but now you don't need this move. Okay, so we make it to move, or rather, left means forward. Left means backwards. Right means forward. Okay. So let's just test that again. Okay, so you can move it backwards, forwards, backwards, forwards, like that. Okay. Alright. And then for the other keys, up, down. So for the up, down, we're not going to now use left and right, but or rather, we're not going to use the move. We're going to use the up and down. Okay. All right. Now up and down. For up and down, you're going to use the set location instead, okay? Not the turn, okay? Set location. Now let me quickly explain the set location. Put that there as well. Right, set location takes two parameters. Set location takes two parameters. Okay, just break it down here. So set location, okay, takes an x and the y coordinate. Okay, correct? So the y coordinate is normally your right, let's assume that these are coordinates, okay, and your coordinates is x and y. So x means that the horizontal line, and y means the vertical line. Okay, so if you start from 0 and you end up to whatever the height of your world is, okay, it would be from 0 to 500, and from here you start also 0 to whatever the width is now, say 600. Okay, so your x coordinate is the horizontal line, and your y coordinate is vertical. Okay, so if you put a set location, for instance, to 50 on the x coordinate and let's say 150 on the y coordinate, it would be on the x coordinate, let's say if 50 is there and 150 is over there, then the position will be set to that location there, right? So in the case of moving it upwards and downwards, when you move it upwards, you decrease the y coordinate, and when you move it downwards, you increase the y coordinate. Okay? Right? Don't understand? If you move, okay. Alright, let's say, okay, we say that is 150. Set location to 200. Okay. So if 150 was there, and we add 50 to that, it will be there. So that's moved down. Okay. In other words, if the object was at that position previously, you add 50 to it, it will be at that position. So it moved downwards. So if you move it down, you add to the y coordinate. If you move upwards, you subtract from the y coordinate. Okay? So the two other methods that you need in conjunction is the get x method and the get y method. Okay? So initially you need to get the location of the current object where it is on the y and the x coordinate, and just add or subtract from the y coordinate. This is how we will do that. So we first get the x coordinate. So the x coordinate is not going to change. Okay. Then we get the y coordinate, and for up we subtract from the y coordinate. Let's say minus 5. Okay. Alright. So we do the same for the get x, that stays the same, and get y plus 5. Okay, so now we're moving downwards. So up, down, okay? So let's see the effect of that. So our keyboard forward, backwards, down, up. Okay?
Yeah.
So now it looks more realistic for a person to move, okay?
So if you don't put those numbers, 5 and minus 5, how does it get?
Hey?
If you don't put the value to it,
If
you don't assign any value.
If you don't,
You're gonna cause errors or anything.
no,
Just remove the plus 5 and minus 5. Yeah.
it's not going to do anything. It's just going to get those. It's going to set it back to the current location. So you will still be able to move forwards and backwards, but not downwards. See, you can't move
But
downwards.
if press key down, do this, if key up, do that, isn't it gonna move?
This is what we're doing here. East key down. East key down if it's down, the down key, arrow key, and the up arrow key.
So if we remove the set location, is it gonna move?
No, it's not going to do anything either. Because you're not doing anything. So there's, in fact, there's errors found in the code because there's no statement.
Okay.
Okay. Right, so that's it. So that is the, okay, so what we've done now, looked at, is the two chapters, or the two topics here. Adding your own methods and using key controls. Okay? Right, let me. Okay, so let's look at two other, the world-class methods that are, there are two methods that I want to highlight here. Is the one is the show text, and the other one is, I think it's set background. Okay. Okay. Those are the two ones that I'm going to look at here. Okay. The show text. So show text is a world-class method. In other words, like Greenfoot, you have to call it with dot, world dot, but in this case you actually have to create an object of the world class, and this is how you're going to do that. Okay. Let's say we want to show text on the screen when when it eats something. Okay. So we're going to do that and say. So it's going to collect the methods here, right? So if is touching, so what it's going to touch, what does it need to do? What space object? Space object dot class. So if it touches the space object dot class, let me just do that. Then we want to do something. Okay. Obviously, we want to remove the object. So we would say remove touching space object class. Okay. Okay. But you also want to do something else. And we said we want to display or show the message. Okay, now for the message, this is what you need to do. World, okay, equals, that's the declaration of the world object, and then W equals get world. Okay. In other words, it makes W to be equal to the current world. Okay. So then you can now call methods on the world. So in this case, it's W show text. Show text got two parameters. Okay, let's just go back here. Show text has got two parameters. The one is the actual text, okay, which is a string text, rather three, and then X and the Y coordinate. Okay, where the text is the actual text that you want to display. It is a string. It must be in double quotes. Y is the Y location on the screen, on the world, and X is the X location or the X coordinate, and Y is the Y coordinate. So we want to show text, and let's say eaten. Now you only see this once, not once, but you'll see it. But it might not disappear because every time it eats, it will just replace the current word eat. Okay, so you don't really see any change. So let's put this at 150 on the X coordinate, or you could put it somewhere in the corner. Let's say 50, which is not necessarily the corner, but let's just see if that works. And 20. Okay. Alright, so let's go back to our code, or at the, so we're going to move this. Oh, backwards and forward doesn't work. Okay, there it says eaten there, okay, in a corner. Okay, let's just change this code because we didn't. So we said up is -5 and down is +5. Let's just try that again. Okay. Okay, see there it shows eaten, but like I say, it will keep on displaying eaten, but you don't see the effect here. So that is show text. Okay. You can use this for when your game is over or well, okay, when it hits the end of the game, okay. And this is what I'll show you now, okay. Okay, let's put in another method, the method that he required, the Boolean method. Remember you asked for a Boolean method to be, okay. Okay, so let's add a Boolean method, okay. So we say public, and for this one we will check whether there's no more objects, okay. And we'll call it Boolean, okay. No, we still display Boolean. Let's call it no more objects. So with this one, we will check if there's no more objects. Okay. Now there's a way of doing that. Okay. Okay, you'll see there's an error there, right at the bottom there, missing return statement. That's what that error says. So for every return in other words, if a method has a return type, there must be a return statement as well. Whether it be a integer or a string, there must be a return statement. So let's just put in this. Let's call it false initially. Okay, that's just to make sure that we don't have any errors. Okay. So as we collect the objects, we must constantly check if there's no more, so let's say if no more objects, then we want to do something, okay. And again we can use that same show text, and we say that game over or something. We display that somewhere in the middle. Let's say 250, 200. That's it. Let's return a true value here. Okay. Remember, we still need to do some check to either return true or false. But let's just test that with this. Okay. So if no more objects, then show game over. So obviously it will show game over. Yeah, it just shows it initially.
So the default color is white.
Sorry?
The default color is white.
Yeah, the default color. I just need to investigate what color, if there's font that you can set. I'm sure there is. So we'll have a look at that later. And of course the size as well. Okay. Right, so that just shows true, okay? Because remember, this calls it all the time, and when it hits some true, it will just execute that. So, how are we going to do this, okay? In order to either call true or false, we want to check if the objects, in other words, if all the ball objects, there's basically a collection for all the objects. If you can check the size of that, and you can check whether it's 0 or whether it's null. Okay. So the statement get objects. Let me just make sure if this is okay. Get objects. See, maybe we have to create okay, they get objects, so it get objects, and the objects that we want to get is the space objects dot class Okay, but now this normally returns a value, right? So we have to put in a statement here. If the objects that we're retrieving, if it is equal to null or dot empty, okay, is empty, either of the two. If it is null, then we return true. Okay. Okay. Else we return false. Okay. Right. So if the objects, if the objects in the, or if all the space objects, the collection, if it's null, in other words, that would say there's no more there, then it will return true. Otherwise, it will return false. So we can test this by doing look. So we eat number 1, eat number 2, eat number 3, 4, 5, 6, and then the last one, it does not do anything. So we have to check the other one. If is empty. Let's try that one. Okay, we just have to be careful with our brackets now that we, so is empty is a method. And yeah, so let's try that one. Okay, there, game over. Okay. So of course you can then, if that is the case, you can do other things. You can then, stop the game or change the background, okay, whatever. Okay, so when you stop the game, we use the Greenfoot dot stop. Okay. So that will stop the game basically. Okay. The other thing that we want to also do is to change the background at some stage. Okay. So I'm going to show you how to change the background. You can use it whenever you want to change the background. So let's say we've reached a particular stage. Now the background must be set using firstly the background has a file name. Okay, there are two methods basically. The one is Greenfoot image, the other one is the file name itself. Okay, so that you can check up on here. So in our Greenfoot world, there's a set background. See, there's two ones. The one is set background Greenfoot image, and set one background the string file name. Okay, so we're going to use the second one. Okay, we will deal with that later. Okay, when we deal with animation. Okay, so. Inside our mover, so now we've got world, because the Greenfoot is the set background is a world object, a world method. It's a method of the world class. So dot, then we put in w dot, set background. Set the background. So now for the background we need an image. Okay. We have to look for the image now. Let's go back here. Go to that desktop. Right, so this we wanna get an image. Put it in here somewhere. Okay. So let's look at the image. So let's use this desert image. So there's desert. Go back to our code. So it's called desert. Okay. So when there's no objects, we want to set game over, change the background, and stop the game. Okay. Let's see how that's going to do. Ooms. Okay. Alright, you want to see that again? Alright. And then it stops. Obviously I can't move any further. It just stops. Right guys, that is all that I want. I'm going to go to code. Right, I'm going to stop the video.